Hey you guys, I bet you can't guess what we're going to talk about today. It's painting. Well, you know what? Yes, absolutely. You can hire someone to paint and they are experts in their field and they will do an excellent job. However, sometimes you maybe are in a hurry, or maybe you are a new homeowner and can't quite afford that, or maybe you're a flipper and trying to cut costs in certain areas. So we're going to go through some tips today to help you guys do the best you can at painting the walls in your home. So whether you are a new homeowner, a DIYer, or you just are tired of that color that you have in your living room, we're going to talk about the painting do's, and then I've got an absolute don't for you, especially if you're in the South. So first off, you want to decide, do you want, what characteristic of paint do you want? Do you want it to be warm? Do you want it to be cool? Do you want it to be neutral? Also, a thing to consider is, what do you have in your home currently? And maybe you don't know. So taking some paint cans that you have currently to your paint expert, they will be able to help you understand what colors you have currently. And then if the color that you are wanting to get actually will go or flow with the color that you want to purchase. Any of the big box stores, or your Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore, any of those places will be able to help you understand what temperature the paint is that you're wanting to use. As you are beginning your painting project, there are lots of tools, and I just want to go through a few of them so that you are prepared as you begin to paint. So the first one is a paint roller. And also what I want you to know, if you have traditional sheetrock, you want to probably get a 3/8 nap on your roller. That just means it's not a very rough surface, and so the 3/8 nap will work great for your traditional walls. A half nap is a little bit better if you have textured walls or things that you're going to want to cover up. The other thing that you want to think about is an extension pole. If you, like you see in here, these walls are way taller than I can reach. So the extension pole will actually just go into the end of your paint roller, and then you can reach those high spots. Another thing you're going to want to invest in is a really good brush, because when you are rolling towards crown molding, like in here, or baseboards, you're going to want something to cut in. That's what you do at the top or the bottom, where you're getting the edges so that you don't run your roller straight up your crown molding or your baseboards and then you have painted baseboards. So you're going to want a great paintbrush to edge in on your room. Another thing that you want is some drop cloths. Those can be cotton, or you can buy plastic ones so that your furniture is covered, because, well, especially if you're anything like me, you're going to get paint everywhere. So the paint will splatter, and so if you cover up your belongings in your room, they'll be protected. The next thing you're going to want is painter's tape. That's for things like edging your baseboards or around your window sills so that you don't get paint on them. You're just going to edge your room and protect those things that are not supposed to be the wall color. Another thing is a screwdriver so that you can take your outlet covers off. Please take your outlet covers off. They are super easy to take off or replace if they're really dingy, but you're going to want to take those off so that you can paint around them. Also, you're going to want sandpaper and wall putty. If you have, maybe it's a new home, you might not need this. If it's an older home that there's been multiple photos or pictures hanging on the wall, there's probably nail holes. So you will want to putty those up and sand them down, so you'll need sandpaper too, so that you have a nice smooth surface when you're painting. The last thing that you're gonna want to need, or you are going to need for your painting project, is a paint tray. So they have all kinds of different ones. They have plastic ones, they have metal ones, they have liners that can go in both of those. Really, that is just your preference as to whichever one you might want to use. The liners are actually super easy, because when you're done, you can just chunk them and you don't have a whole lot of cleanup. Same thing with your rollers. I have tried in the past to save them, just to try to save money, but you know what happens is the paint actually dries on there, and then you end up getting paint chunks on your walls. So just invest in good rollers and your project will turn out great. So the next thing you want to think about when you are going to paint a room is how much paint do you actually need? So a general rule of thumb, 1 gallon of paint actually will cover 400 square feet. Now, there's some caveats there. If you have a really rough surface wall, you're going to need a little bit extra. If you are going from a super light color like we have here to a darker, richer color, you're probably going to need a little extra. Also, if you're going from a really dark color to a really light color like this one, you're going to need a little extra, just for coverage sake. If you are going from a dark color to a light color, you can actually get a gray-based primer that will help to transition to your lighter color and not need quite as many coats of your paint. A general rule of thumb is about 10% extra will cover those things that you didn't really intend or you didn't account for. So just remember to get a primer if you're going from dark to light. Also, make sure that you know about what size your room is. That way you can estimate how many cans of paint you're actually going to need. Okay, so you know your tools, you know how much paint you need, you know what color you're gonna want. Now we have prep time. So we covered a little bit of this with our tools, but just as you are preparing to paint, what I want you to know is there's a good amount of prep to take place first. I am one of those kind of people that just love to just dig into the paint because you can see an immediate change. But there is some prep work that'll save you a big headache in the long run. So we already talked about paint, painter's tape. So make sure that you line your baseboards and your crown molding and any window sills with your painter's tape so that you're not getting paint on those things. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is take the furniture that is in your room and you wanna push it to the center. That way you have access to all the walls. And when that furniture is in the center, make sure that you cover them with your drop cloths. I promise you, I'm probably the least careful person, but for those of you who are really careful, still, it splatters. When you're rolling, it splatters, and I just want to make sure that you protect your furniture. So make sure that you cover your furniture. And then the last thing is make sure you know how to repair the drywall. I'm sure there are a dozen videos on YouTube that you can go through and search how to repair. Just make sure you have some putty and some sandpaper, a little putty knife, and fill in all those holes or gaps or dings that have happened to the wall so that way you have a beautiful smooth surface to paint. The next thing I want to remind you as you're doing your project is to mix your paint. You may have come directly from the paint store and it may be mixed, but I would still recommend getting a wooden paint stick and stirring before you get started. And then also as you're going through your project, make sure you stir pretty often, kind of like cooking. You want to stir it every so often because you don't want to compromise the true paint color that you want in your room. The next thing I want to talk about is the actual painting itself. So we touched on this a little bit earlier when we talked about cutting in, and that's where you edge around your baseboards and also your crown molding. This is very meticulous work so that you don't get paint everywhere. So you may want to have a friend or a buddy or a child, somebody to help you with the rolling while you're doing the cutting in part. And when you're going to roll a wall, you want to go in a W pattern. So that way you don't leave those streaks that nobody likes to see on their walls. Another tip with that is make sure you have good ventilation, have your windows open, have a fan blowing because paint, it is kind of smelly, and so you don't want to be inhaling those fumes all day long without some ventilation. Another thing to think about is your second coat. If you try to put paint on too early, you're going to end up with a globby mess. So make sure that your paint, that where you have painted, is dry to the touch, so that way you're ready for your second coat. All right, we're going to move on to cleanup. Most latex or water-based paint are super easy. You've got some warm soapy water and cleanup is a breeze. It'll get it off yourself and off of your tools. If you have an oil-based paint, you're going to need mineral spirits. And again, that one's kind of smelly, so you want to definitely do that outside when you're cleaning your brushes with mineral spirits. All right, our absolute do not tip for painting, especially if you're in the South, in Alabama like we are, humidity. when the humidity is really high, like right now we're in June and it is getting pretty warm. So check your humidity levels. If the humidity is extremely high for that day or that weekend that you're planning on painting, I would skip and wait until the humidity drops a little bit, because it makes the paint difficult to dry, and then also it's going to take longer in between times for you to get your second coat. So that's my do not tip for you guys in the South. Whether you are brand new to home ownership, whether you're flipping, or whether you just have a quick project you want to tackle in a weekend, painting can transform a place. And so we just wanted to give you some tips that will help you be successful as you are working on your own projects. And of course, if you have any questions about anything home related, we would love to be your real estate resource. We are Mike and Brandy Brown at Keller Williams in Birmingham, Alabama. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, 205-368-5995 or info@mbrownrealty.com.